If you remember during COVID, and that wasn't many years ago, there was actually a lot of discussions about will travel ever come back to the levels we saw in 2019. And myself and also many other people in the industry said that no, absolutely, this will happen. And I think if you're looking at now in 2024, just in Europe, we are back into 102% of the capacities that we saw in air travel in 2019. And if you're looking globally, now we're going to continue to see growth, so I think 4 to 6% annually. I think it will be slightly less in Europe because it is a very penetrated market already, but you will definitely see low to mid-single digits growth in air travel because there is an underlying strong demand, particularly for leisure travel. We see that the travel behaviors now is very actually traditional. People tend to appreciate their, the long-awaited for break they can take with the family to destinations such as this. So the destinations that are the so-called traditional beach destinations, such as Mallorca, but also in Turkey, in Greece, and those destinations also in mainland Spain, they are doing really well because people now, seems after COVID that they really appreciate the experiences more than things. So that's what we believe, that we're going to continue to see the trend where it continues to be traditional holidays that people want to go to. But also because of the increased connectivity that we also see, the ability for short breaks is definitely there. But what you tend to do then is you tend to go and travel with different companies. So perhaps you do a short break with a friend or just your partner. You go on the long holiday, perhaps with your families and with children, and also different generations we see are traveling more, where you have 3 generations of traveling, grandfathers, mothers and fathers, and also their children. And those are the type of things that I think hoteliers in particularly also need to make sure they cater for. And also I just should conclude with that we see a lot more people who actually, because of the out of office work policy, that they actually can work from hotels. So hotels is putting in a lot of investment that they can work from hotels with good Wi-Fi, as an example, to make sure the connectivity is there for people to do. So those are the type of things we see. But it's remarkably traditional, I would say, compared to what some people might have thought. The low-cost travel and the low-cost airlines, and I'm very biased on this, obviously, given my background, but it has revolutionized the travel in many parts of the world, and particularly in Europe. And is definitely profitable. I saw Ryanair came out with the results here on the full year yesterday, and they're making profit after tax of 1.6 billion euros, slightly down from the previous year, but it's a very profitable business. If you're looking at the market consensus on a company like easyJet, if you believe the analysts there, they believe that company will make in the full year 700 million pounds profit before tax, which would be a record year. So we can definitely see that this model continues to grow and then also maintain and increase its profitability. But I also think that this is not so much about whether a company will grow at the expense of quality. We should know that quality is essentially the difference between the expectations you have on something and the actual experience. And of course, because the average fares of companies such as easyJet and Ryanair are so attractive, that means that you can give a lot of quality for what you actually are getting. Quality is not the same as just having big business class seats and lounges. It's actually flying on time and flying obviously safe and delivering a great network, and that's what these companies are doing. So I think that will continue to be there. And like I said, Ryanair, who's a pure European airline, they had 200 million customers here announced in a year. easyJet will have over 100 million customers as well. So these are big players, and they will continue to grow, and they will grow profitably. I think geopolitics, which is really the key underlying worry when you're looking at making estimates for growth and how it's going to affect the demand. That has always been the case. This is not something new. If you're thinking about, you take the results that I just mentioned that easyJet is projecting to do and Ryanair just delivered. That's happening in a time where we have 2 full-blown wars between Israel, Hamas, and Russia and Ukraine in the proximity of the network. So this doesn't stop people from traveling. Yes, it may affect certain routes, but people will ultimately want to protect their travels because we know that is so much in demand. But I think geopolitics, you're right, that is probably the biggest things that one has to watch out for. Pandemics, we know, can have a massive impact. But, thank God that those are, pretty rare that they happen. But, obviously things like COVID was a massive blow to the industry. But underlying, this is an industry that will continue to have tailwind as they go forward in the future. I think that the industry is always looking for interesting and new destination to launch for the customers. But ultimately, and that comes back a little bit to your question on some of the mature destination you mentioned, they also need to have infrastructure. They need to have the hotels. They need to have hotels that isn't only super expensive. They need to provide value at all sides of the spectrum, from 3-star and 4-star and 5-star. But I think it also falls down to the responsibility of the politicians and the decision makers in these places to make sure that the revenues that actually are being distributed and allocated to destinations, they also then need to make sure that they can protect and grow the infrastructure with it. Because it's a self-fulfilling thing that unless we have infrastructure in beautiful places like this, people won't just come. But it's hardly right to say that this is the fault of tourism. It's actually because revenues, that is great, and that has built up many places around the Mediterranean and contributed to the society, to the communities, improved livelihoods directly. That needs to also be allocated to take care of the infrastructure. And that needs to happen at the same time, and decisions needs to be taken place from politicians to make sure it doesn't get caught up in a period where there has been no investments for 5 to 10 years to look after the growth that anticipated to be. But it's hardly the fault of tourism. Many destinations, people could not make their livelihoods if it wasn't for tourism. But there's a responsible way that needs to grow in the future. And that's the thing where the industry has to work hand in hand with politicians and local decision makers.